You know that exact feeling. Like, you've typed out a text message 3 times, pouring out exactly what you want to say, exactly how you feel.
Yeah.
And then you just stare at the screen.
It's awful.
It is. You slowly backspace the entire thing, right? You just said, like, sounds good.
Or maybe you're sitting right next to someone you love. You're on the exact same couch. Your shoulders are almost touching. But somehow you feel like you're a million miles away from them.
Right. It is a profoundly universal experience. I mean, one of the most painful kinds of loneliness happens right in the middle of a room with someone else.
Yeah, that thickening silence where you are just desperately aching to be known.
Exactly. But something inside you flinches at the very possibility of being truly seen.
Well, we are getting deep into the mechanics of that flinch today. We're taking a deep dive into the psychology behind it, leaning heavily into the wisdom of Gestalt therapy.
Because we really want to understand why we pull away from the exact closeness we crave. Right. But I want to set the stage right out of the gate here. The mission of this deep dive is not to diagnose you.
No, not at all.
We aren't here to offer a quick, 5-step fix for your relationships.
Because there is nothing fundamentally broken to fix. I think that's so important to hear.
Yeah, our mission is to unpack why we sabotage intimacy. We're going to explore how our bodies hold on to these missed moments.
And how we can actually start to step into real, unpolished contact with the people in our lives.
So, how do we frame this fear of intimacy? Because people are so hard on themselves about it.
We really are. We tend to judge ourselves so harshly for pulling away. But we're not looking at this fear as a weakness or a character flaw.
What is it then?
We are going to look at it as a brilliant, incredibly loyal, if maybe a bit outdated survival strategy.
Okay, let's unpack the motivation behind this survival strategy. Because the common assumption is that avoiding contact or shutting down, deflecting with a joke, that it all comes from indifference.
Right, the idea that people pull away because they just don't care enough.
Exactly. But the source material flips that completely.
It really flips our usual understanding of distance upside down. Emotional distance isn't coldness,
Right.
You aren't avoiding contact because you don't care. You are avoiding it because you care too much.
Because at some point, we learned that caring is dangerous.
Exactly. Somewhere early in your life, you learned a very hard lesson. You learned that to be fully seen by another person is to be vulnerable to rejection.
Or abandonment.
Yeah, or being deeply misunderstood in the exact place you were hoping for comfort. That is terrifying.
So to survive that risk, we start folding parts of ourselves away.
Brick by careful brick.
Yeah, we take the parts that we were told were unacceptable.
Yeah.
Maybe we were too emotional or too needy or too quiet.
And we just tuck them into the shadows.
Right, and we end up presenting this curated, highly edited, safe version of ourselves to the world.
You create a version of yourself that is survivable because your nervous system, it's incredibly pragmatic.
It just wants to keep you alive.
Exactly. It doesn't care if you are deeply fulfilled. It only cares if you are safe.
But the tragic irony is that survival, over time, becomes a cage.
A cage you built with your own hands.
To keep yourself safe from the pain of being truly met. It makes me think of wearing a full suit of heavy medieval plate armor to an intimate dinner party.
Oh, I like that image. Walk me through it.
Well, so you walk into this warm, beautifully lit room carrying 80 pounds of steel.
Must be exhausting.
It is, but it guarantees that no one at the table can stab you. You are completely protected.
Right.
But it also means you can't actually eat the food. You can't feel the warmth of the fireplace on your skin. You certainly can't hug anyone.
So you're entirely safe, but you are completely isolated.
Exactly. So my question is, if our brains know that we are desperately lonely inside this armor, why is the instinct to keep it on so overpowering?
Because your nervous system, at a primal level, will always prioritize safety over satisfaction. Every single time. It views the warmth of the room as a potential threat, because feeling that warmth requires taking the armor off.
And taking it off means you could get hurt.
Exactly. But the true cost of that choice is profound. Every time you hide a part of yourself to stay safe, you don't just lose contact with the other person at the dinner party, you lose contact with yourself.
You stop trusting your own feelings.
You do. You begin to doubt your own worthiness. You internalize the belief that the person you actually are beneath the armor is fundamentally unlovable.
Which just fuels an agonizing loop.
A continuous loop. Desire for connection triggers a deep fear of vulnerability.
Which leads to withdrawal into the armor.
Right, which results in crushing loneliness, which then creates an even greater desire for connection. It's an endless cycle fueled by an unmet need.
I really want to look at how this plays out in real life. We understand why the armor goes on, but the actual mechanics of how we shut down, it seems to happen so fast.
It's lightning fast.
Yeah, we often don't even realize we are sabotaging the connection until the moment has already passed.
Well, to understand how we interrupt connection, we have to understand the natural flow of it first. In Gestalt therapy, this is called the cycle of experience.
The cycle of experience, okay.
It's the natural rhythm of how we meet our needs. It starts with a need arising, then awareness grows. Energy mobilizes in your body.
And then you do something about it.
Exactly. You take action, contact is made, satisfaction follows, and finally, there is withdrawal and rest.
Walk us through what that actually looks like in a totally natural, uninterrupted scenario. Like, let's go back to that couch we mentioned earlier.
Okay, picture a couple sitting on the couch on a Tuesday night. They are both reading. The cycle starts when a longing for closeness arises in one of them.
That's the need?
That's the need. Then comes awareness. They look up from their book and realize they miss their partner, even though they're only 3 feet away.
That makes sense.
Next, energy mobilizes. They feel a flutter in their chest, a physical readiness. So they take action by putting the book down and reaching their hand across the cushions.
And the partner takes their hand.
That is contact. The warmth of the hands meeting is the satisfaction. They hold hands for a few minutes, feeling connected, and eventually the energy settles.
They naturally let go.
Right. They let go, pick their books back up, and return to their separate selves. That is the final phase, withdrawal. The cycle is complete. It rises, crests, and recedes.
It looks like a wave.
A wave, or imagine standing on the bank of a river. On your side is your longing for connection. On the far bank is your fear of being hurt.
And what's in the middle?
Flowing between those two banks is the current of your life, made up of missed moments, half-spoken words, and gestures that never quite landed.
Wow.
The issue isn't the river itself. The issue is that we interrupt the cycle of experience right before the crest of the wave, at the threshold of contact.
So we get the flutter in our chest, we think about reaching across the couch, but we stop ourselves.
We pull back. And there are 3 specific ways we unconsciously interrupt this cycle right before we cross the finish line into actual connection.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first one is called retroflexion. This is when we turn our impulses inward instead of outward.
Retroflexion. How does that look in practice?
Let's say you are at dinner and your partner makes a sarcastic joke at your expense in front of friends.
Oh, the worst.
Right. The immediate natural impulse is to say, ouch, that hurt. But instead of directing that energy outward into contact, you retroflect.
I swallow the words.
You swallow the words. Internally, you tell yourself, don't be so sensitive. Why are you always making a big deal out of nothing? You become both the person who has the need and the person denying the need.
So the energy that was supposed to go toward them, like telling them they hurt me, it just ricochets back inside.
Yes, and it often manifests physically. Swallowing that ouch at dinner might turn into a debilitating migraine 20 minutes later.
Man, that is so true.
The energy doesn't disappear, it just attacks you instead of risking conflict.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
We basically do the rejecting for them.
Exactly. Now, the second interruption is projection. This feels related, but it's more about imagining the rejection before it even has a chance to happen.
Like writing the script before they even speak.
Exactly. With projection, you replace real, unpredictable contact with a fantasy. You sit on the couch feeling the urge to reach out, but your mind immediately says, if I hold their hand, they'll pull away. They'll think I'm needy.
You project your own unmet fears onto them.
You do. You turn your partner into a mirror for your insecurities.
And in doing so, we don't even give them the chance to show up for us. I mean, we end up interacting with the ghost of our fear, rather than the actual human being sitting right in front of us.
Perfectly said. We reject ourselves on their behalf, assuming we already know how the story ends.
Okay, then there is the third interruption, and this is the one I really want to push back on.
Let's hear it.
It's called confluence. This is described as blurring the boundaries between yourself and the other person to avoid the risk of separation.
Dissolving into the relationship like sugar and tea.
Right. You agree with whatever they say, you smile when you are actually sad, you just go with the flow.
Yeah.
But wait, isn't being adaptable supposed to be a good thing?
It can be.
I mean, compromise and going with the flow are generally praised as really healthy relationship skills.
Why is Gestalt therapy calling this an interruption of contact?
Because adaptability is a conscious choice.
Yeah.
When you are adaptable, you bend for the sake of harmony, but you maintain your solid sense of self.
You still know who you are.
Right. You know where you end and the other person begins. Confluence is entirely different. Confluence is an unconscious attempt to stay safe by becoming invisible.
But if I'm agreeing with my partner, isn't that keeping us connected? Like, we aren't fighting.
You aren't fighting, but you aren't actually connecting either. You believe on a deep subconscious level that if you assert your actual truth, if you expressed a differing opinion or an inconvenient need, it will destroy the connection entirely.
So you dissolve yourself.
You become the sugar in the tea.
I see. So it's not about being easygoing at all. It's about erasing myself. The tragic irony of confluence is that by dissolving yourself to save the relationship, you guarantee that the relationship isn't actually with you.
It's with a projection.
It's with a ghost. There is no contact happening because one of the people has effectively left the room. You are physically there, but energetically you have completely vanished.
That is a massive distinction. You basically abandon the relationship by abandoning yourself.
Exactly.
So if we are doing all these things,
Yeah.
retroflecting the anger into a migraine, projecting our fears, or dissolving into the tea, what happens to all that unexpressed emotional energy?
It has to go somewhere.
Right, because the initial impulse to connect, that physical longing, was real. Where does it go when we interrupt it?
It gets trapped in your physical form. In Gestalt therapy, we call this concept unfinishedness.
Unfinished.
All those moments from the past, or even from 5 minutes ago on the couch, that never got their full expression, they live in the body's ledger.
The body keeps the score.
Always. The unfinished business becomes the tightened throat when someone asks how you really are. It is the sinking sensation in your stomach when you hear a certain tone of voice.
Or the way you chronically hold your breath during difficult conversation.
Yes. Your body is holding the muscular tension of every single time you swallowed your truth to stay safe.
But if all this unspoken tension is physically trapped in the chest or the throat, we can't just talk our way out of it, can we? How do we actually release that?
We use a practice called phenomenology. It sounds super academic, I know.
It does a bit.
But the application is deeply intuitive. It is the practice of describing your experience without adding any interpretation or narrative to it.
What does that sound like?
Instead of saying, I'm terrified my partner is going to leave me because of what I just said, you shift your focus entirely to the physical sensation. You say, there is heat in my palms and my chest feels incredibly tight.
You strip away the story and focus on the raw data of the present moment.
Exactly.
But let me challenge this. If I look at a car's dashboard and the check engine light comes on, you are telling me to just stare at the little red light and say, the light is red and glowing.
Right.
Instead of popping the hood to figure out what's actually broken in the engine, doesn't stripping away the emotional label and just describing the physical sensation make us hyper-fixate on the discomfort without actually solving the problem?
That is a really sharp analogy. Let's look at what happens when you do pop the hood, though. When you spin a story like, I'm terrified they will leave me, you are digging around in the engine, getting tangled in wires that might not even be broken.
You're lost in a narrative.
You are lost in a narrative about the future. Phenomenology moves you from being the fear to witnessing the fear.
From being to witnessing. What is the practical difference there?
When you just notice the heat in your palms and the tightness in your chest, you create a tiny gap of space between you and the sensation.
A little breathing room.
Yes. You are no longer the anxiety. You are the awareness observing the anxiety. In that witnessing, space opens up for agency.
Agency.
We return to the Latin root of the word responsibility responsum, which literally means the ability to respond.
Oh, wow. Because if the story in my head is, they are going to leave me, I am a victim of a future I can't control.
Precisely.
But if the reality is, my chest is tight right now, I can take a deep breath.
Yeah.
I can actually do something about that.
As long as you believe your withdrawal is caused by the other person being unsafe, you are totally powerless.
Right.
But when you use phenomenology, you realize, I am experiencing physical tension and I am making an unconscious choice to distance myself to relieve it.
And the moment you realize you are making a choice.
To reclaim the power to choose differently.
Man, so if our body is holding all this protective tension, shouldn't we figure out how to aggressively force the armor off Like if we want connection, don't we need to just push through the fear and force ourselves to be vulnerable?
That is the logical instinct, for sure, but it actually backfires. You don't release this tension by forcing vulnerability. You do it by changing your relationship to the fear itself.
How so?
You have to stop fighting it.
Why shouldn't we fight the thing that's keeping us isolated? I mean, it's the problem, isn't it?
Because the fear isn't an enemy you need to conquer, it is a loyal guardian. Think about it. That urge to pull away, to deflect, to hide it is a mechanism that actively tried to save a younger version of you from unbearable emotional pain.
It did its job.
It did. It's the plate armor. It kept you alive when you needed it to.
Healing doesn't start with throwing the armor away in disgust, then.
No, it starts by placing a hand on your chest and genuinely thanking it, acknowledging that it kept you safe. When you stop fighting your own defenses, they actually begin to soften on their own.
That feels so much more gentle.
It is. But I want to be very clear about something here. Opening your heart and dropping the armor does not mean becoming endlessly available or emotionally porous.
Right, because if you don't have boundaries, it isn't intimacy, it's fusion. It's that confluence we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Intimacy requires two distinct whole people. If you abandon yourself to merge with the other person, there is no one left to make contact with.
So true.
You have to be grounded in your own center with deep self-respect to truly meet someone else.
So how do we actually practice this in the real world without completely overwhelming ourselves?
Yeah.
Because dropping the armor sounds huge.
We start with micro moments of honesty.
A micro moment.
Yeah, it is not about spilling your deepest, darkest trauma on a first date or completely breaking down every wall you have in one dramatic conversation.
That would be terrifying.
It would just cause your nervous system to panic. It's about tiny, almost imperceptible shifts in how you communicate, saying things like, actually, I didn't like that, or I'm feeling really nervous right now because I want you to understand me.
It reminds me of how you update a massive piece of software.
Oh, I like that. How so?
You don't have to rewrite your entire emotional operating system overnight, you know.
Yeah.
You don't have to delete the whole code and start from scratch. You just install these tiny patches.
Tiny patches of code.
Yeah, these micro moments of honesty are just little patches that you upload into your interactions. Each time you do, you send a new, subtle signal to your nervous system that says, hey, we are actually safe enough to be honest now. The system isn't going to crash.
That is exactly it. And each of those micro moments is an act of completion. Expression is completion.
Expression is completion.
When you let the interrupted impulse finally reach its destination, even if your voice is shaking, even if it feels awkward, you close that loop of unfinished business.
And over time, that actually rewires the nervous system.
It does. But we have to acknowledge a hard truth about this journey. Healing is a spiral, not a straight line.
A spiral, meaning we're going to mess it up and put the armor back on.
Well, a straight line implies that once you conquer a fear, it's gone forever. You move from point A to point B.
Like checking a box.
Right. A spiral means you will inevitably circle back and revisit the exact same fears, the same urges to pull away, the same instinct to hide.
That's something incredibly frustrating. I think I just feel like I failed.
Most people do. You might think, I thought I dealt with this already. Why am I wanting to delete this text message again?
Yes.
But because it's a spiral, you aren't actually back at square one. You are encountering the same fear, but from a deeper, more grounded level of awareness.
So it's familiar, but I'm different.
Yes. You are revisiting it with new tools, new micro moments of honesty to apply. It is not failure, it is practice.
It is the practice of realizing that love, or real connection, doesn't actually ask for the polished, curated version of you.
Never.
It doesn't want the version of you in the pristine armor. It only asks for your messy, trembling, uncertain presence.
Perfection is not required for contact, only presence.
That is beautiful. The core journey we've been on today really reveals something incredibly hopeful, I think. Our hearts aren't actually broken.
They aren't inherently flawed.
No, they're just exhausted from performing. They are waiting for us to stop running.
The overpowering urge to pull away is just a miscalibrated protector, a guardian that needs to be thanked, not fought.
We looked at the specific mechanics of how we interrupt our own connection. We retroflect and turn the energy into physical pain.
We project our fears onto others.
Or we dissolve into confluence, becoming the sugar in the tea. But the way out isn't through grand, dramatic gestures of vulnerability.
It is found right in the body.
It is noticing the tightness in our chest, stepping back to witness it, and choosing a tiny, brave micro moment of unpolished honesty.
Because through those tiny moments, we slowly teach our nervous system that it is finally safe to take the armor off and feel the warmth of the room.
Absolutely. To wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a specific thought. I don't want you to try and answer this right now.
No, let it breathe.
Yeah, I don't want you to treat it like a homework assignment. Just let it echo. Carry it with you into your week, let it unsettle you in a good way, and see what it stirs up the next time you find yourself sitting on the couch, feeling a million miles away.
Or staring at a text message you're afraid to send.
Exactly. Here is the question. What would you say to the people in your life right now if you knew you wouldn't be punished for your truth?